Welcome to the Nevcast, where three bros talk business, art, justice, and the pursuit of Jesus.
Any day above ground is a good day.
Get ready to laugh, cry, and kiss 30 minutes goodbye with Peter Nevland,
Dave Nevland,
and
Rashi. Rashi is here. Nevcast is here. Oh, Peter, sorry, you were going to do that. You did the last one, so I jumped in on you.
I think our podcast has a very fine tradition of us talking over each other.
Does it?
Yeah, it's probably.
I think it does because we do that.
Yeah, we show all sorts of
where I would do that
for each other's. Yeah,
exactly.
Hold on, Rick.
No, Rashid, do you have something to say?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
It sounds like he stopped at a rest stop.
Something like that. It's very possible.
He did. He said, "I did."
our man on the road. Our man at rest.
He's dropping a load in the woodlands.
There we go. That's right, dropping a load in the woodlands. Fantastic. So look. I've got my holiday sweater on here.
That's holiday. Okay.
Nice and toasty.
What holiday is that?
Holiday colors.
Oh, I got a holiday. I guess there's a holiday. Yeah, the holiday that goes with the red.
Yeah, because Christmas is coming up. And I thought it'd be interesting because we've had some conversations lately.
Have we?
Yeah, about the whole church ecclesiastical schedule.
Holy days.
Yeah, holy days, right? And obviously most of what the Western Church follows is legacy from kind of like the Roman Catholic Church's church calendar, right? Where you have, it's basically you get Easter, from you got Lent, and then Lent starts, and then you get Palm Sunday, and then Easter, and maybe you get to Ascension Day or something like that, and then you kind of have this, in between time sort of thing when not a whole lot happens, and then you come up to Advent, but then of course we have Thanksgiving, which is a purely American thing, but you get Advent that comes to Christmas, and so the major holidays that we have, in our year are these holidays, and we celebrate Jesus' birth on Christmas. But surprise, surprise! I don't know who this is a newsflash to, but if it is a newsflash to you, you heard it here first. Christmas is not the time of year when Jesus was actually born. And even Easter, the name Easter is. What's going on over there, Rashi? Are you blowing your nose or what?
No, I'm listening to you guys, man.
Oh, there's something scratching. It's like.
Yeah, there was some extra white noise.
Yeah, right. Anyway, Easter is originally basically from the name of a pagan god.
Ishtar, and before that,
that's when we celebrate Jesus' resurrection. And so there are some people who are, saying, well, hey, where do those holidays come from? Why do we celebrate them on those days? Should we really even be celebrating Christmas at all? Should we really even be celebrating Easter at all? Shouldn't we be celebrating the different feasts that God prescribed in the Old Testament? Shouldn't we be following the Torah? I thought it's a very interesting question. And I know maybe we've had different times in our lives, but Dave, do you remember the first time that you realized that maybe Christmas was not the time when Jesus was born, the time of the year when Jesus was born?
Well, kind of. It was probably late in high school. Someone started saying, the shepherds are not out watching their sheep in the middle of winter. It's not like it's crazy cold in Israel, but it's colder and it gets cold and it snows every once in a while. In fact, I remember looking, it was the fifth grade. I was like, wait a minute, where is Israel? I got this globe. Let me spin this globe. But holy cow, I live at the same latitude. We grew up in Dallas, Texas, or Grand Prairie, Texas. It's exactly the same latitude almost as Jerusalem. It's just like right there. It's like, oh man, it's probably just as hot there as it is here. So it gets cold for about a month or a month and a half in December, January, February here in
Right.
Texas. It probably gets cold there too. I can see why they would not be out there watching the sheep in the middle of winter. And someone was like, yeah, probably it's more like September that they were watching the sheep. Now, this is before the internet and before it was really easy to look and do a lot of this research. And it's a whole lot easier now. In the late 90s, there was a guy that put out a program. You could buy this program and look at the stars and go back and see how the stars and the constellations moved around and the planets and how they joined. And he could go back to these dates at around the time of Christ. And man, there's some cool conjunctions of planets and constellations that happened. Not some, and there's some that did happen right around December 25th, 21st, 22nd, 3rd, but there's other ones that happened in September, in the late September, when we started hearing, oh, that's probably when Christ was more born, was in late September, when the shepherds heard about this announcement from heaven when they would have been out in the fields. So, yeah. So there's something like that. Did you do any research? So we started talking about this. Did you do any research since then? Because you started hearing about it then, but now it's easier to find this on the internet.
Yeah, and I think the hard part about it is I feel like most of the people that I find out information from who are talking about, whether they figured out the exact date that Jesus was born as being, okay, Jesus was born on September 27th, or the wise men ended up visiting about a year and a half later, a little less than a year and a half later on December 19th, or right. And so they have these actual dates, but the people that are saying this stuff, the evidence seems to be pretty factual. It seems to be pretty compelling. And yet the people that are saying it kind of use some sort of manipulative type of stuff in the way they talk about things. They sort of have they came out of like maybe, yeah, or they had a cult they were a background in being involved in a cult, and it seems like they're starting their own. Or they'll say, you've never heard this anywhere else before. This is the only place, that you've heard this. And this is, now you have the whole truth. And you start thinking and going, well, wait a second though. So this truth that you've discovered and this really cool stuff, okay, nobody's figured this out for the last couple thousand years.
Yeah, right.
And you're saying that God has only finally revealed his ultimate revelation to you after 2,000 years, so that what happened to all these other people who weren't doing it right? Were they not included? And so there's aspects of this where it's kind of like, okay, so that may be true, but how important is it actually, as far as Christmas? Because, we found out when we were kids that, well, the origin of Christmas, as far as there was Christmas trees is not it's like a pagan tradition in conjunction with the winter solstice, right? There's and burning Yule logs, like you would get the idea was you get a log, big, huge piece of wood, and that you would start a fire with it and it would burn the whole Yule tide. And it's kind of like it could be warding off of evil spirits or, different things going on like that, right? And then celebrating, there was this, spiritual things that are happening around the winter solstice, right? So there's this mix of Celtic spirituality in our Christmas tradition.
Druid, like from Druidism?
Yeah, from the Druids. But then there's also this thing, what I found out recently was that apparently a Babylonian and or Roman god, which is they both kind of a little bit merged together, this god Tammuz, who basically was, he was killed, and then he was reincarnated and came back to life as a baby. And it was supposed to be, his birthday was supposed to be on December 25th, right? And so part of me
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, that's really weird that, are we celebrating this pagan thing?" But then this other part of me goes,
The
"Well, that sounds like a story that got twisted,
Oh,
that
now
God
hold
was
on.
trying to put us."
Yes.
Right? What? Okay.
Yeah, hold on. So the first time I heard this, I heard someone talking about these connections. They were saying their axe to grind on this was that, oh, the Catholic Church stole the whole story, or the
Right.
scripture and the biblical story is stolen from Babylon. And people would even say, oh, like it's the same person would say
Right.
the Star of David that's on like an Israel flag is
Yeah.
stolen from Babylon, right?
Yeah.
And they say, oh, and so everything, all of Western Christianity is a copy, is a retelling of an older story that was Roman and Greek and da 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 da.
Or
And they were like, and
Babylonian
their
or
axe to
whatever. Yeah.
grind, yeah, their axe to grind was that everything I heard as a kid is not true, and it's all made up, and it's all stolen and copied, and therefore it's not important to me anymore. I don't need to,
Right.
subscribe to this myth. That's basically how they said it. But then what's really true is, and I think you were just about to go into this, there's a story that people were telling each other by looking up into the heavens before any of these other religions actually even came about.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't even going to go there right then, but yeah,
Okay,
that's
we can
that's
go there in
that's
just a bit.
that's the other amazing thing is that the constellations themselves have the story of, basically Christ's redemption in them. And they're relatively unchanged throughout all different cultures, like all the different constellations that are there in the 12 different signs of the zodiac, and then their smaller little um, star patterns that are associated with them. There's about 40, I think there are 48 constellations total, maybe somewhere around 60. But anyway, each one has three. There's a major constellation, and there are three sub ones that go with it, and all of them in those groupings tell the story of Jesus. The Jesus actually being wounded by the enemy, and then on his heel, and then triumphing over the enemy and crushing his head, and doing all this stuff. There's this, and the Hebrew name for the zodiac is called the Mazzaroth. Um,
Yes,
but
Mazzaroth.
if you look across all these different cultures, the names in Arabic, even in Aztec, in Mayan stuff, in Greek, in Roman constellations, even in Chinese, Egyptian, all the different stories that are told of the zodiac almost have the exact same name
Pattern.
meanings of the stars
Mm.
and the patterns. And so there are only small places where they're changed a little bit from one to another. Like I read a book recently, God's Voice in the Stars, right? So there's that, and you could argue about, well, which one came first. You could
Well,
trace all these historical
you can, yeah.
sources.
The first group, the first people that had zodiac signs were the Eber people. EBER is how we would spell it, which is
Right.
the precursor to Hebrew, the Hebrew
Yes.
people, the Eber people, and they were the first ones to have the zodiac, to look up at the stars and say, "Here's the story in the stars." That's the earliest one. Where
Right.
did they get that?
Well, where did they get that? So Psalm 19 says that God named the stars, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and then there's other places in the Bible where it says, "Yeah, you call the stars by name."
Mm-hmm.
You call the stars by name. So Adam named the animals, but God named all the stars.
And this is
And
before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But this is before any of the festivals. This is before Moses, any of the
right,
feasts to keep. Right. This is before any of
right.
that. So who's copying who? Is what we end up
Well, and
saying
I don't
in
know
that
if it's
way.
yeah. I think that sometimes you miss the point, like, because on one side you have people that are saying, look, if we want to follow God correctly, we need to follow the feasts that he prescribed, or follow the Torah as he prescribed it, right?
Right.
But then there are other people that come and they'll say, well, wait a second, but his story is reflected even in those pagan things. What if we just stop worshiping the pagan spirits or the pagan deities that they're ascribing this to? And why don't we just say, hey, Jesus is the ultimate fulfillment of all of these things anyway? And so do we have to have the Hebrew traditions, the Hebrew festivities and stuff? And then even if you do have the Hebrew ones, do you include Hanukkah? Do you include Purim? Because those weren't prescribed by God; they came
Right.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And so, what should we be doing? And I've heard people say, well, you shouldn't even have a Christmas tree, right? Your Christmas tree is messed up. You shouldn't be decorating. That's an old pagan tradition, and we need to be, doing something else, right? And of course, if you become a Jehovah's Witness, you don't celebrate birthdays, and you don't. There's nothing celebrated, because let's be austere and
Yeah.
and we can't
Don't
wear
make
any
one
jewelry.
day. Yeah. Don't make one day more holy or more revered than another day. That's where they get that.
Right. Right. Well, and it seems to me that, like, all of this quest for, do we need to be in a learning Hebrew and the Messianic Jewish community, right? Do we all need to be going back to those roots? I think Jewish roots are fantastic. At
It's
the same
amazing.
time, I
Incredible.
think God likes a lot of variety in cultures, right?
Yeah.
And our cultural celebrations that we have, is there something inherently wrong with another festival called the 4th of July?
There's some people that would say there is.
Or Thanksgiving? This
It's
is a
not
very
bad.
recent one.
Yeah.
What,
It's not bad to have to be full of Thanksgiving.
why do we celebrate Thanksgiving? Like, it wasn't prescribed. There is a one of the feasts, which is a feast of thanks, where they come and they offer. It's the feast of first fruits, right?
Yeah.
Offering our
Yeah.
first fruits to God. So when it was the harvest feast that they would have in Israel, where people come and they offer, the first fruits of the harvest to God and thank Him for blessing them and for providing for them, right? Well, so the pilgrims, they didn't necessarily, it wasn't maybe at the right time that Israel celebrates it, but they celebrated something like this to thank God for all that He'd done for us. And so then it became this,
Yeah, because they were about to
awe-
die. They
right.
were about to
And
die and they got saved. And this was the time of year that they got saved.
yeah. And it became an on again, off again tradition throughout American history until Abraham Lincoln formalized it in the middle of the Civil War and said, this is the date. We're going to do it on the fourth Thursday of every November. That's when we're going to have Thanksgiving. And so Thanksgiving happened, right? And yet, and of course, now we commercialize it and make it about football and turkey. And that's about it. And maybe a parade where Santa Claus shows up at the end. Right? Even Santa Claus himself was a tradition that came from this guy, Saint Nicolaus,
Saint
who was
Nicholas,
an amazing
3rd
guy who
century.
took in a ton of orphans and gave out a lot of gifts to people in his community and
Yes.
stuff. And so then this tradition
He was kind
continued.
he was kind of a badass too, because he went against some heresy and he entered one of the it wasn't the gathering at Nicaea, and there was a guy preaching Gnosticism, and he went and smacked him in the face. Said, you can't be preaching this. You can't teach this. No, I mean, it's a little bit of a legend as to whether he really did it, but it is a story surrounding him that he went into the gathering and he punched this guy in the face because this guy was a heretic. I mean,
Now you've got movies where what is it? There's a Violent Night is coming out, and then there's the Christmas Chronicles that came out a little while ago with Kurt Russell as Santa Claus doing, and being somewhat of a. So I guess maybe that's part of the Santa Claus thing. But I've heard people argue, well, and the whole Santa Claus is a lie. We're teaching our kids a lie and all this kind of stuff. And
when we were kids, someone said, if you redo the letters in the name Santa, it makes Satan. It's like,
yes, that's right.
Yeah, but Santa in Spanish means holy.
Right. That's right. Santa in Spanish means holy, and in Latin it means holy as well.
Right.
Well, And so all this, it can come down to this thing. I think the whole thing, the whole quest comes down to, is God really that concerned with us getting it 100% right? Is he
Man,
really that concerned that when we're doing our best to celebrate him, that we have to do it exactly perfectly? Do we have to have perfect faith in order for God to receive our offering? Is that why God didn't accept Cain's offering? That
right.
Cain didn't have perfect faith?
Something.
Or was it something else? Did it actually say that God didn't accept Cain's offering, or was Cain just upset that God was really pleased with Abel?
I mean, God
You
came
know?
right to Cain and he said, Cain. I mean, he came and talked to him. He intervened. He didn't
Right.
just cast him off. He said, "Hey, I see this. You did this thing, but it's fine. I mean, I'm right here. I'm right here. But sin's at the door. It's trying to get you, but I don't want it to get you. You know." And
Well,
then,
and I think, so that's the same spirit that was operating, was messing with the brother in Jesus' story of the prodigal son, right? The
yeah,
son comes back, and that older brother
yeah,
who stayed faithful I did everything right this whole time, and how come my brother, who wasted his entire fortune on a bunch of harlots, comes back and gets to be here? It's like this thing of, yeah, but they're not doing it as right as me. And my question keeps coming back to, is God really concerned with us having to do it 100% right? Because he keeps choosing people like Jacob. And if you think about Jacob, there's some really screwed up stuff.
oh
Jacob,
yeah,
his
supplanter.
his best attempts to get close to God were having to deceive and connive and trick people in order to get close to God. He picks
Yeah,
people like David. David's a man after God's own heart, and he becomes a murderer. He becomes an adulterer.
yeah.
And
I
yet
mean,
God sees something more in him.
when you don't do something right, it is called sin. Sin
Yeah,
is missing the mark.
I'm not excusing that we mess up and that we make mistakes and that those mistakes have bad consequences.
But if he
But
held all our sin
I,
against us, who could stand?
who could stand? Who could stand? And didn't wasn't there a thing in the New Testament called the Jerusalem Council, where they said,
Yeah,
does everybody have to become Jewish in order to follow Jesus?
yeah.
Or can we just say, hey, don't don't eat things sacrificed to idols, don't eat things with blood, and don't engage in sexual immorality?
It was
And
at the Jerusalem Council that James, the half brother of Jesus, for obvious reasons, stood up, and because he was leader of the church in Jerusalem, he stood up and said, what's happening, what's going to happen is the tabernacle of David is going to get restored. He quotes Amos, who originally
right,
said that the tabernacle of David, and what was that? That was this place that was like, it doesn't follow the mosaic, how you get to God and all
yeah,
these things you had to do. It's just like presence of God is in a tent, the tent door is open, anyone can come in and be around the presence of God. Anyone,
right, anyone,
right?
yeah,
Anyone, not
right,
one priest one time a year. What?
right,
What?
right.
So that's what James stands up and says is going to is happening. He said this is happening right now in our lifetime,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm telling you, it's like, man, the presence of the Lord is open to every culture, and no matter how screwed up our traditions have become, uh, Jesus is the fulfillment of every one of our stories. All our highest hopes. Jesus even went into, the even Halloween, which comes out of the Day of the Dead and all this kinds of stuff. Jesus went into hell and he led captivity captive, and the dead came out and they spoke and they testified that, of Jesus being Lord and Jesus conquering death and conquering hell. And so even that, Jesus is the fulfillment of all these different things. And I'm telling you, if we will stop arguing, if we will stop arguing about who's right, because I would submit that that is actually the original temptation that Satan offered to us was to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and say, oh, you
Yeah.
could know everything from right to wrong, and then you'll be able to
Yeah.
decide. If we would stop arguing with each other and we would all come close to Jesus and get intimate with him and be in his presence, then he will guide us and he'll change us from the inside out and make us better people and free us from our sin. That's always been the offer. And it's that simple.
That was the oldest trick in the book. It is the oldest trick in the book.
Right.
You'll be like God. You'll know good and evil. We were meant to know it. We were meant to know him.
Right. So I just encourage you, if you're thinking about Christmas and whether your traditions are right, you know what? You can go to him personally. You can go to Jesus. You can go to the Lord personally and ask him, God, what could you help me and point me in the right direction of what would be the most honoring to you, the way that I could celebrate Christmas this year? And what God puts on your heart, do it. I guarantee you he'll meet you there.
Yeah.
I guarantee you he wants to more than you want to meet him. He would love the excuse to talk to you. He would love the excuse to spend time with you. And anything that you do to celebrate him and to thank him for who he is and what he's done for you, I tell you, man, that he will receive that wholeheartedly and shower his love on you. That's what our times of celebration are about. They're another
Amen.
excuse to go and find God and get close to him and be with him.
That's right on, right on, right on.
Rashi, you got any final words to say for us? I know we kind of went off and you're driving out there.
Oh man, I see all the stuff going on in the world, man, and I think it's about just following God, man. Like it's about following God. Too much caught up in stars and what this say, and you got these people now going around, the Israelites, black Israelites. They feud with the Jews, and when it come down to it, man, there's no superiority, black over white,
dang,
white over black. At the end of the day, man, we all created by God, man. So we need to just come together and just worship God,
right.
man. Like caught up in all that, we could do this in the Christmas tree, and who gives a damn about a Christmas tree or a star or any of that stuff, man. You just gotta worship God, man, at the end of the day.
There you go.
Stay focused on God and, doing what's right. It's get caught up in too much rules, man. I mean, we supposed to have rules, don't get me wrong. The commandments, we supposed to follow the commandments, the 10 Commandments, I know we supposed to have rules. We get caught up in all this Thanksgiving and, man, like Thanksgiving, okay. My grandmother and grandfather was Indians, right? But at the end of the day, man, this is the day I come together with my family and, and we celebrate it. I enjoy being around my
all got together, friends. That's right.
Yeah, my friends. So I'm not stuck on that stuff that happened years ago, man. War been going on for years, man. People been taking stuff for years. The world was built on war, and if I got more swords or more I get a billy clubs than you, I'm gonna come take your land. That was just what the world was built on, man, and it's still going on today. So I try to stay up out of that. We was in slavery and caught up in, I don't get caught up in all that, man. I don't focus on the problem no more, man. I focus on the solution, man, and the solution is God, man.
Come on, that's right. That's right.
Following God, man, and quit dwelling on the problem and let's just focus on the solution, and that's God, man. It's following God. We can't get caught up in all these different rituals and all that stuff. Don't matter, man. At the end of the day, I think that's why got the world why we so divided right now, because one person want to say, oh, I'm better and what I'm following better and I'm Jewish and Jesus was with the Jews and oh no, you're a white Jew and so you're not right now. But the black people, we was original. Just, man, I don't give a damn about all of that, man. And at the end of the day, man, we all created by God. He didn't lock his way. He came to save the world. He didn't come to just save the Jews. He just didn't come to save the blacks. He didn't just come to say, I don't believe it's no chosen people. we all, we all created by God, and He loves us all equally, man. At the end of the day, and when we
Yeah.
realize that, that's when we can grow as people, as a nation, as the world, man. That's why we so divided right now, as we stuck on this race stuff. And oh, you miss your blessings like that, man. Like people, I saw a dude the other day, man. He looked at me crazy, man, and I know he was a racist, man. He just looked at me crazy, and I could just see it in his eyes. But bro, you missing your blessing, bro. Cause man, get to know me, man. I'm a good dude, man. You'll fall in love with me, man.
Right.
I'll be a good friend to you, man. But you so stuck up on trying to be racist and doing stuff like that. I had a friend of mine tell me something about, oh man, white people this, and I was just like, man, look, man. One of my best friends is a white dude, man. So it's like, it would be disrespect to him if I sit up and agreed with you on that stuff. So, man, at the end of the day, man, and I know it'll probably never happen, but we all to just need, not talking about no goddamn Rodney King, man. We all need to just follow God, man.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
and
That's
don't
right.
do certain things like cheating on our wives and stealing from people. Let's solve small stuff like that. But who gives a damn about a Christmas tree? If you hang it up, it look beautiful. If I look at a Christmas tree and want to get caught up on it look beautiful. I like the lights on it, man. I like the way it make my house look, man. During the Christmas season. But oh, don't hang it up. Or I forgot that somebody else told me something, man. Dude was telling me something about, man. I was eating with this dude one day. And he told me, man, don't eat with a fork and a spoon. He told me Jesus ate with his hands and all that type of stuff. The dude I was eating with from overseas.
Right.
And I
It's
said, man,
true.
I think back then Jesus and them didn't have forks and spoons, man. Give me a damn fork and a spoon. I'm not caught up on, man, I love Jesus, man, but I'm not getting caught up on walking around with no shoes on and doing all that type of stuff. They probably didn't have that stuff back then, and that's what people get caught up on, man. At the end of the day, we all brothers, we all sisters, man. That's all I gotta say, brother.
Yeah. That's good. That's
know,
good. That's awesome, Rashi.
Well said.
Well,
All right.
there we go. All right. Well, have amazing holidays out there. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
May God
Whoa.
bless you.
Nice.
May God bless us. Everyone.
Everyone.
All right. See y'all next time on the
Wow.
Nevcast.
That's it for the Nevcast this time. Join us next week when we talk justice, business, and art in pursuit of Jesus. We will see you soon.